Good afternoon, Frida Liu and BF. Time for Tech Talk. I'm here with Xiao Wing Fei from F-Security and Krishna Rajagopal of AKATI Consulting. And I'm hoping that I've got Freddy Tan, the Chief Security Advisor for Microsoft. Of course, our focus today is on security, and cyber threats are getting progressively worse. Hi, Freddy.
Hi.
Okay. All right, welcome. Anyway, cyber threats are getting progressively worse, and just looking at the last 3 years, we've seen things like the slammer worm taking down the US electric power network, cyber terrorism in Estonia, and then the hacking of CNN's website. So what can we expect in 2010?
Well, I can probably share a bit in terms of the predictions that F-Secure actually has. We did a wrap-up for 2009. We also came out with some predictions for 2010. First of all, we're expecting to see Windows 7 will start to gain some market share. So the low-hanging fruits like Windows XP will tend to disappear slowly for the bad guys, but we have actually yet to know if it would be Windows 7 or it could be some other platforms, for example, like Mac or even mobile platforms. So that's one area that we are actually seeing more activity in terms of malicious stuff. We are expecting the 2010 FIFA World Cup, where that's a worldwide event that would gain a lot of attention and also enthusiasm from a lot of people. So we're expecting to see Trojans, for example, fake ticket shops, people doing hacking activities for betting websites and spam, which is related to the 2010 FIFA World Cup too.
All right, and we'll just check if Freddy, you can hear what we were discussing.
Yes, I can hear. I can hear him very well, but you are rather soft.
I'm rather soft. Okay, what are your comments around that about cyber threats?
Right. Our security intelligence report, we have seen a trend, and essentially three key areas we see a rising trend. One is, of course, the use of what we call scareware software. And we see that very prevalent in the last half year, and we expect this to continue over into 2010. Worms is something that we are also noticing making a comeback. And the third area is the Trojans that are used to steal user credentials as well as monitoring of user activities. Okay. Now, these are the three things that we feel will be something that will grow in 2010. We are beginning to see actually Trojans targeting gamers now. Okay. Because gamers today, there are a large community of them, and some of the credentials can actually be traded on the internet for value, for money.
All right.
Yeah, and it's actually something that we have also been seeing, which is actually quite popular in Asia, for example.
Okay.
So there are many youngsters here who really like to spend their time on the computer playing the online games.
All day long.
The virtual commodities, the gold, the sword, the armor, I mean, those are stuff that
Krishna, your 2 cents worth.
Well, I'll think that from our side, we looked at social networks. That's going to be a big thing. You know, since there was some malwares like Coopface on Facebook. And so you'll see more of those coming along the way. And also, we're thinking of people targeting file sharing sites, Rapid Share, torrents. You'll see more of those coming along the way as well. And of course, Adobe Acrobat, PDF files, and Flash files.
Okay.
Right? I mean, we've got a whole list on our blog, but then again, just a few highlights. Besides all this, I would have to agree with Freddy as well, because recently I think there was a phishing attack on the World of Warcraft website. Right, so it's going to be a very interesting scenario there on the gaming industry as well. Of course, you see more mobile devices as well. So iPhones, Androids, those are also a trend.
And we'll talk about smartphones a little later. So what should corporations be doing to ensure their services stay running and secure? Krishna?
Well, I've got 3 things, though. First, obviously, think out of the box, right? So they probably should listen to that 10 mistakes that corporations shouldn't do. Second, of course, policies, right? Chart out proper policies, follow them. And the final, I think that the key to a lot of corporations is user awareness. A lot of users aren't aware, they're not in the same wavelength as the IT team or the security team at all.
All right. And Freddy, what are your views on that?
Yes, I do agree with Krishna, but in addition to that, I'd like to add that we need to see simpler security solutions. Over the last 10 years, I think the number of threats has been on the rise, and what we are seeing is, a range of security solutions, from desktop to servers to gateways. Now, organizations, corporations, their challenge is how do they actually manage all these solutions? Now, if the solutions are very complex, then you find that there will be mistakes made, there will be errors made in the configurations, and therefore leading to potential compromise by hackers and so on. So one of the things that we need to see is that while the threats become more complex and more comprehensive, we need to see solutions that are more integrated and simple to manage.
Yeah, I think Freddy made a very good point that human is actually the weakest link there to any sort of security breaches.
Unfortunately, we can't get rid of them.
Yeah, and you can't really get rid of them. And the thing that, well, in my perspective, I don't think there's any silver bullet to this sort of way of keeping your organization or corporation secure. But taking an onion model of defense where you have a layered approach for each and every level that you have when you want to protect your data or your information or your assets would be something that would be a best practice that most should actually follow.
Freddy, are closed networks the way to go?
All right. I think it is definitely an option, but what is important is that corporations need to do what is termed as risk management. Now, if you look at risk management, there are a variety of methods to actually manage risk, from risk avoidance, risk reduction, risk retention, and risk sharing. Now, just like in the real world, we don't keep every asset of ours in a bank's safe deposit box. All right, you usually would secure what is of the highest importance to you, the most valuable. But you still have to have your lifestyle, like for example, you wear your Rolex watches and you walk along the street. Now, this is something that you have to do as an everyday life. Otherwise, what's the point of buying Rolex watches and keeping them in the bank? All right. So I use that analogy to say that at the end of the day, not necessarily closed networks is the way to go. Closed networks are definitely applicable to agencies like intelligence communities, security agencies, but for businesses, all right, they have to be connected to the internet.
Krishna?
Closed networks are probably one option, but again, if you look at closed networks from a wireless standpoint, the fairy tale that if my network is closed and no one else can ever attack it, I think people should be aware, and that they should come to realize that while closed networks is an option, it's not a guaranteed protection.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, better metaphor perhaps I could use, it's sitting in a car parked in a garage and you don't even have a key to start the engine. And in the world that we're in today, I mean, information is actually very crucial, and getting it in a timely manner would actually give you a competitive edge against your competitors. So if businesses, they want to be better than their competitors, they need to follow what they're actually doing, but they need to do it in a more manageable manner in terms of risk and also security.
BFM 89.9 is our Tech Talk Forum 2010, and we're talking about security. Here with me is Chia Wing-Fei, F-Secure's Security Response Team Manager, Krishna Rajagopal, the CEO of AKATI Consulting, Freddy Tan, the Chief Security Advisor for Microsoft Asia Pacific. Now, with cloud computing set to grow in 2010, according to research house Gartner, what should companies do to ensure reliability and uptime is optimal? And public clouds like Facebook and Gmail accounts have already been hacked. So what must enterprises do to prevent this? All right, Krishna. Whoever looks at me first gets it.
Well, I think, first of all, they've got to understand the simple pattern that most web service attacks happen. Most of them start off, if you look at somebody wants to attack, criminals want to attack, for example, the new Google Wave, for example, yeah? They probably start off by sending some spam. Right? You'll see some spam activity going around different parts of the world utilizing this particular web service. And then after that, they will start going on to phishing, and maybe even farming. But then the last step would be to exploit the vulnerabilities and then spread malware. So this is a common pattern, this three-step pattern that seems to happen with most, even Facebook, even Gmail accounts. So as long as we understand that, then probably we need to go back to the previous question where what we need to do to secure ourselves and have a structured approach. That would be what I...
All right. Freddy?
Yeah, what I like to mention is by sharing a recent incident whereby user credentials of Gmail, Hotmail, and Yahoo users were actually exposed on the internet. And you find that the credentials were actually not stolen from the servers. They were actually stolen through phishing attacks directed at the users. And when a study is made at the passwords that were exposed, the most popular password was actually 123456. All right? So what I'm trying to say is for cloud computing to be secure, it's not just the vendors that have to do their part, but I think users need to understand, all right, the importance of safeguarding their credentials, making sure that their machines are clean, all right, they have antivirus, they fix them, they patch them, and they update the signatures. Now, and users have to use complex passwords.
Right. As much as we don't like that. Okay, so what can we do in terms of educating users on security policies, Wing-Fei?
Well, what I actually think is we should actually start educating this from the school level because, for example, we're seeing kids who are 6 years old or even younger actually getting onto the internet for purposes like social networking with their friends and things like that. But they don't really know how to differentiate exactly what's a phishing website, what's not a phishing website, what is a malicious link to click on and what is not. So those are actually quite important stuff. Like just, for example, if you're learning to drive, to teach you the rules, the regulations, how you start the engine, etc., before you actually are given the license to drive on the public roads.
So parental guidance expected.
Well, parental guidance, and also something that maybe we should start looking into how we can incorporate this into the syllabus at secondary schools or even primary schools, if it would be more relevant in that case.
Yeah. And of course, I like to add on to the corporate side of things. I think from a corporation angle, you need to do more security awareness sessions. Recently I think I attended one that was done by Ministry of Transport, and that was a good one because they brought in all their staff from different agencies, put them in the room, brought different people from different vendors, and spoke about different types of security. Of course, not technical. And of course, what we could do again is if we could add a little demonstration session, just to give that good paranoia feeling to the staffs. And as far as the end user is concerned, an average user, mommy, dad, small kids, then I would have to agree with Wing-Fei because the awareness has to be brought in from the first day. Because if you pick up a bad habit, it's very, very difficult. For example, they used to find out why was it so difficult to get rid of this habit of, a lot of people have this belief that the place beneath your keyboard is a safe haven. If you write your password in a sticky note and stick it below your keyboard, it's safe. Because it started off somewhere and it was a bad habit that just carried on the way.
What do you mean by a good paranoia feeling, though?
When you get scared.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One of the biggest fears people have is the rise of botnet gangs, and could you explain what they are and the threat they pose? Maybe Krishna can...
Yeah, I'll start off with botnet first. Botnet basically came from two words, robots and networks. So that's where botnet came along the way. And these are basically just softwares or applications, automatic applications installed on machines and converting those machines into zombies. Pretty similar to, for example, the movie Lord of the Rings. If you would look at, in Lord of the Rings, I think Sauron had his own set of zombies. Those, if I may, I think it's Uruk-hai, wasn't it? Right? Whatever you tell them to do, they do it. And there are actually gangs now that go and recruit. So it's like, I'm a bank, all right, a botnet bank. I've got 120,000 people below me, and I could use this to stage an attack. A good example was these two groups, Avalanche and the other one was, I think, Zeus. And these two guys were actually even having a pact. So we call this the grey partnership area. So they're actually working together and sharing profits.
All right.
Yeah.
Freddy, any comments on that?
Yes, a lot of these botnets actually are comprising of machines belonging to users whose PCs have been compromised. Today, we see the rise in broadband many people actually do not switch off their machines. They remain connected, 24 hours a day. And these machines, all right, they don't actually adequately secure them. Some of them, they don't even have passwords for the administrator accounts. So these machines become easy targets for these botnet herders, where they compromise the machines and they would actually take control of the machines and use the machines, all right, for many malicious intent, from phishing attacks to denial of service attacks against organizations. So I think it is very important that every consumer who is on the internet needs to ensure that the machines are free, all right, from bots.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone here probably agrees that the user education here is not very effective in terms of what we have done so far. That people still leave their password blank and they just click on links and they just don't know what is actually happening. So social engineering here seems to be quite effective, I have to say, and that's probably not going to be any user education that could teach you against that.
Okay, and the next question is for you, Freddy. User access control was a trick cyber criminals used in the past to gain access to people's computers. So what is Microsoft doing about this with Windows 7? And is this something all IT companies should be wary of, because too much choice can be confusing for people?
User access control was a feature that we started to have in Windows Vista. And the reason was actually to mitigate against social engineering attacks as well as Trojans and so on, malware. All right. And what we did was we forced the user to run as a normal user. But there are instances whereby applications will want to make changes that require administrator privileges, and that is when you see actually a pop-up. All right, and that pop-up is actually by the user access control. Okay, so we use a pop-up, and I think there is a confusion that every pop-up is a user access control, which is not the case. All right, scareware also use pop-ups. Your IE will pop up and say that your machine is actually infected, but that is actually not from UAC. Well, having said that, we do recognize that UAC in Vista was something which users do have their concerns. And therefore, in Windows 7, what we have done is we have allowed users to select their comfort level. All right. So they can, if those that are very paranoid, they will get a lot of notifications. All right. There are users who like to be notified whenever any application tries to do any changes to the system files. And users who are more, more, I would say, do not want to have that much information, they could actually lower the settings. But having said that, we also recognize the fact that it is important to work with applications. Many applications today support Windows 7, and therefore, UAC is also supported by this application. So users actually have a seamless experience when they use Windows 7.
Okay, and just on to the final question, what about smartphones? What threats have you uncovered so far, or what threats do you see will be happening soon? Freddy.
Now, smartphones, as far as a hacker is concerned, a smartphone is just a computer. Today's smartphones, they have IP addresses. They can be connected through broadband, wireless, and so on. And today, people are using smartphones to access social networking networks, their emails, their corporate emails, all right, and the calendars. And so, definitely, I would say that the criminals would harbour smartphones as part of their target. In addition, I think in many economies, we see smartphones, the number of smartphones in use is rising a lot faster than desktops. And therefore, it only makes, a right choice for hackers to want to target them.
I could share a few incidents. I think in the end of 2007, since as early as that, there was an iPhone 1.13 firmware exploit. And since then, you see a lot of exploits on iPhones. One good example was the last Black Hat conference in Vegas. Charlie and Colin, both of these guys, they actually demonstrated a technique where they could use the Sully framework and craft an SMS and send it to, in that particular instance, they tested the iPhones, the Androids, and the Windows mobile devices, and they could get complete control of those devices You know, on other angles, I think a lot of iPhone users are actually jailbreaking the iPhone devices, even though they are not legal. And then they tend to leave the passwords default, and the default password is Alpine. So what happened was there was even a Dutch hacker who actually took control of it. It's very simple. He took control of the phones and started demanding €5. So you can actually see a profit motivation in the newer attacks.
I wonder if we've interviewed him.
Maybe so.
All right. I know we've run out of time. I just want to thank the people that we have here with us today. Chia Fei, F-Secure's Security Response Team Manager, Krishna Rajagopal from AKATI Consulting, and Freddy Tan from Microsoft Asia Pacific. And tomorrow in Tech Talk, we'll be talking about the 2010 CES exhibition, BFM 89.9.